HIV positive for 33 years. And now I'm also a peer mentor with Saskatchewan Health for about 2 years. And I'm also Hep B, and I was Hep C up until last year. I did the treatment last year, and the Hep C is now gone. And as experimenting, it was when I was doing the Hep C treatment that I waited quite a while to do it, because back years ago, the treatment that they had, there was a lot of side effects, and back then I was into a lot of my addictions back then and everything, and I wasn't ready for something like that. And I'm glad I waited, because when I was in there and I was taking my Hep C treatment, just at the end of it, they turned around and they discovered, if it wasn't for the Hep C treatment, me waiting all them years for that, they would never discover that there was cancer in my gallbladder. And it was just because I went up and fortunately, to take that treatment for the Hep C. Otherwise, they would never have known. So by doing that, Dr. John Shaw in Saskatoon, he's a great doctor. When I first found out, I was in Regina. And then, when they took me in to see Dr. John Shaw, for a couple of months, I was just a mess. I wasn't even thinking about anything else then. But, it was a big relief when I went in to see him, and, they were saying, hopefully by the time they get me up there, it's not going to grow into my liver, because they'll have to take some of the liver off. So I've been really fortunate. A lot of people say, with HIV and Hep C and Hep B, in a way it actually saved my life, because the lifestyle that I was living back then, there's no way I would have been around, today. Because even with the HIV treatment back in them days, for my first 3 years, they never had it. There was no medication. There was an antibiotic that they would give everybody. So for those first 3 years, I never told anybody that I had HIV positive, or that I was HIV, and not even my own family. So for those 3 years, I was alone, but I had to, get into my addictions really heavy, because I didn't want to really tell anybody because of the stigma and the barriers that people faced back then. I remember times I'd rented an apartment, and once people found out that you were HIV positive, they'd find a reason, for you to get out of there. But that's how I was going from city to city to city to town, every 6 months, 9 months, packing up, because people in the community would find out that I was HIV positive. And, with the stigma and the barriers back then, it was really hard. But the medications back then, when they did come out with them, they were all experimental drugs back then. And there was a lot of them. And back then I was dealing with about 28 pills a day, and then sometimes, at certain times of the day. And being an alcoholic and a drug addict, it was almost impossible. And that's why you see, like in a lot of the places across the country, they'll have those blankets and, different centers for HIV and that. And that blanket was growing with names on it like crazy. And being an alcoholic and a drug addict, and a lot of the people that I knew back then, they just couldn't handle that. That was just too many pills a day. And then I was fortunate in how I used to get through that. I would take those pills for maybe 3 or 4 months' time, and I'll get my viral load down, and I'd get my C4 count up, and I'd go right back to my addictions, because the way I looked at it, I lived for 3 years without anything. I was really sick when I did go for help at that time. So I'd go back into all my addictions and everything for that year, and then I'd run back in, sick as a dog, and I'd go in and I'd get on more medication, and I'd take it for a short period until those results, but until I got good results again. And then I'd get back into my addiction. That's how I was dealing with so many pills back then. But, and I was playing Russian roulette with all that medication back then. That's why, as a peer mentor now, a lot of people that are taking medications, because those pills, they went down to like 20, then 15, then 9, then 7, you know. And today I'm only taking 2 pills a day. And that's why I'm working with, you know, the HIV and Hep C clients. Most of my attention is on the newly affected because of the stigma and the barriers that they still face today. And the medications, I mean, there's not a lot of families of medications for HIV. I mean, as far as I know, I believe there's about 6 of them. But in my case, I had it so long that sometimes if I'm taking the same medication for 3 or 4 years, my immune system gets used to it, you know, your body gets used to it, and it'll fight off and then get into another bracket of medications. But a lot of people that are taking medications out there today, the newer HIV cases, they don't realize how serious it is when they're taking their medications. And if what they would, like that video there, taking those holiday breaks on your medications, you know, in a lot of cases, I mean, I did it myself in the past. I'll be taking the medications, but they're not working as well, and in some cases, not at all. And then they have to be lucky enough to find another medication that your body can take. And I've seen a lot of HIV clients that turn around. It's rare, but there's a lot of them that would, their bodies would completely reject any HIV medications. And, you know, back then, the best thing they could do is just make them, you know, pain, where there's not much pain. So I'm really grateful that any medication that they gave me worked for me. And that's why I like working with the newer HIV clients. And, you know, especially with the stigma and the barriers that they're facing, because even to this day, I mean, even in the medical field, some places I go to get my prescriptions or whatever, I mean, I still see it today, but nowhere near what it was. And all through those years, I've seen a lot of changes, and I see a lot of support for the people that are HIV and Hep C. And, you know, in the bigger cities, they have a lot more things that are available to them. But I go to a lot of the remote areas, because I lived in a lot of small towns myself, and I know clients that are living in small towns, and they have to move out of those communities because they either know the nurse or they're going to school, and they don't want none of their friends to know. They don't, in some cases, they don't even want some of their family members to know. So it's really hard on them to be in a small community and try to have the support, have their friends, you know, have their family. In a small town, it's really hard. And that's why, you know, we try to hit a lot of the smaller towns and communities, and hopefully they can be treated in that community and have the support, you know, of their schoolmates, their friends, people that they're with. That's who they need at that time, you know. And for them to have to be sent to Saskatoon or something just because there's a lot more available to them there. They don't know anybody. It's really hard on them. And that's why I like going to communities where they're only small, because I was in small communities. And it's really important to have that support in communities, the schools. That's why I go to a lot of the schools today. And I'm starting to see a lot more people being treated in their own community. And that is a big thing, because years ago, people, they just all ran. Even if they came from a big city, they'll go to a city that they don't know anybody and take their treatment there. But, you know, I see the ones that are in their communities being treated. They're healthy, they're looking good, they're taking their medications. And I really believe, like, it took 30 years for them to find a cure for Hep C. I mean, that's a long time. And like, this is only my own opinion. I mean, the HIV, I mean, it's been around a long time. I see the work that they're doing with it, with the medications going down, the support that they have out there, all the education and everything. But I really believe that, you know, I'm taking a guess, maybe anywhere from 3 to 6 years. I'm hoping that, who knows, they may have a cure. And if they do, all those years that I was going from city to city, town to town, I would end up homeless most of those times because of my addictions and everything else. And I would end up in shelters while I'm waiting to get into, you know, another place. So going through that routine all the time and being in the shelters, whatever city, wherever you're at, and if you got a duffel bag with medication in it and it's HIV medications, I mean, you don't really, you know, it's kind of a catch-22 because all the shelters are different. If you turn those medications in so they can give them to you at a certain time, then the staff knows, then the people. So it's not really comfortable. So in my case, I used to hide them outside, and I'd go out and get, there's a chance of them being stolen, to try to get some again. They're very expensive. And, you know, that's why I go around a lot to the soup kitchens, to the shelters, and a lot of the clients. You can't stay healthy when you're staying at a shelter. When I was there, I was most concerned about having a bed and something to eat, or when my next meal was. So to get their heads around trying to find a place and, you know, take their medications properly, I focus a lot of my time on trying to help them, like if they got to get a place to live or a better place than what they're in, then they got social workers out there now. I can see the social worker, we can work together, try to get them, you know, in affordable housing. A lot of them are hard place to find places for them. But we have to get a roof over their head before they can actually start. And I enjoy doing it, and I know where they're coming from. I mean, it's really hard when you're in that situation. But the reason why I don't mind going to the schools and everything else, I see a lot of HIV cases, and a lot of them are young, unfortunately. I mean, you know, there are HIV cases, you know, as young as 15, and, you know, that I know. And it's really important that, you know, the kids that are into the schools, you know, they're supportive of their friend and kind of understand a little bit about the HIV and the Hep C and what they'd be going through if they were all alone. I mean, if it was really one of your best friends, you wouldn't want them to be going through that all alone, right? But that's why, you know, and then it was only last year, just before Christmas, my older brother, he was HIV positive. And he was HIV positive for about 15 years. And, you know, he He knew there were services out there, but he did not want anybody to know that he was HIV positive. He didn't want where he was working at, he didn't want them to know. Where he was living, he didn't want them to know. He knew I was HIV positive, but I was the only one that he would talk to, but he was in a different province, so it was kind of hard. But he turned around and just drank and drug himself. I mean, a lot of us do. And turned around and just before Christmas there, he passed away. But that's why it's important to me to go around the HIV clients and the Hep C clients to let them know what support is out there for them. There's a lot of support. And the ones that are in the remote areas, they always try to get them the services that they can get them up there. They'll assign them to a peer mentor, you know, to keep in touch and try to get some services to them. So I'm seeing a lot of changes in how they're dealing with the clients, how they're bringing the education to the communities. And, you know, British Columbia, like out in BC, I used to live out there. I was in Vancouver many, many times, and that's where I kind of started out. And, you know, I couldn't believe it that British Columbia, with the highest newly infected rates in that province, how they attacked it and did exactly what we're doing here today. And here they are, they got peer mentors out there. And the peer mentors are going into high-risk areas. I know that when I was first infected, if I was talking to another person that was HIV positive or Hep C or living with it, I'm sure things would have been a little bit different. I never even knew anything about anything like that back then. But I see BC, they got a lot of peer mentors out there. Saskatchewan is getting a fair number of them, especially in the cities. But out even in the remote areas and everything, I mean, you know, even right today, they're actually looking for more peer mentors. So, and it does work. I've seen the numbers going down in BC, and in Saskatchewan, they're not saying those numbers are coming down yet, but I can see it coming down a little. And I'm sure that by next year, those numbers are going to start coming down, because the presentations that they're putting on in these smaller communities, I mean, a lot of things back then was all happening in the cities. So they're spreading it out. And, you know, ever since that happened there to my brother, I mean, I did it many times. I was isolated. I wanted to stay isolated. And, you know, for those people that are, you know, it used to go through my mind when I was HIV positive some of the years, going around saying, well, you know, never going to get into a relationship, can't do this, you know, all these things you can't do. But you can. I mean, you know, you can get into a healthy relationship. Like I have Sharon here. I mean, she's great support. I've known her, we're both actually from the same town down in Cape Breton. And, you know, actually she was my very first girlfriend, but it took me 44 years to kind of tell her. 46 years. But, you know, it's good when you got that support behind you. And that's why I enjoy doing the work that I do. And when I go to the schools, you know, I see somebody that, you know, is HIV, they're only young or something, and all they do is cry, 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 because they don't have the kids around them, the ones that they're playing with every day, their friends. It can happen to where it's going to happen to somebody in your, you know, at your school or whatever. And that's why it's really important to be there for them. and to learn as much as you can. I know in a lot of cases when I go to the schools, it's the kids that are going home to their parents because some of those parents are like me, old school. I mean, why would I read anything like that if I didn't have it? So it's the schools, the kids that are going home and educating their parents and the community. And by doing that, we end up with a better community. So I really enjoy doing what I'm doing. And, you know, it's just when I was on the streets and everything, and then turning around, and you see a lot of it today. A lot of the clients, they have addiction problems like myself. It's almost impossible to get them a bed in Saskatchewan because of the crystal meth issue that's going on today, not just in Saskatchewan, but all across Canada and abroad. But the beds are being eaten up. You know, it's hard to get a bed for them. That's why, you know, the team kind of, and peer mentors got to keep that close relationship with addiction workers, centers, you know, friendship centers, and some of the needs that our clients need. We have to keep a close relationship with those other communities. And when all the communities or all those resources are working together and can get them together, it also makes it a lot better community to live in and safer. So anything that I can do to help bring the numbers down, because I've seen it done. I mean, Vancouver, it's kind of a wild city, and to see it actually go down from there, I mean, you know, Saskatchewan, I'm sure we can do it. I mean, the way we cheer on those Rough Riders, I mean, if we can cheer this team on to get out there and, you know, find support for all these here newer clients and the ones presently on their medications. But most important of all is the ones that are going through a hard time and down on their luck right now, or not sure where or want to move because of getting this. But the ones that are at the shelters and stuff really, you know, hits me because it's in my mind that how can we find a way to keep them healthy enough until a cure does come? So, because I know it's really hard, you know, to continue taking their medications and that. And that's why I'm really glad that, you know, I see the work that, like Diane and the outreach workers and the communities and the education that they're putting out there. And I'm just glad to be a part of it because I do see change. And, you know, sometimes, like when I go to the shelters and stuff, mostly that's all on my own time. I don't mind doing it because that takes forever. I mean, that could take, you know, so I just do that on my own. But, and I see the difference once they're in an apartment and, you know, they got some of that stress off of them and then they're in there and they're taking their medications. And when they're going through that for the first 3 or 4 months, when they have a peer mentor with them, it really makes a difference. Because I know some people that once they're HIV positive and they turn around, they get the first bottle of pills or whatever, but they got no support wherever they're at. So it's real crucial for them to be tied up with a peer mentor, a social worker, and you know, we're getting it out to the smaller communities because since I've been around, when it comes to an outbreak, I very rarely see it in a big city because all the support, all the education and everything out there, it's usually the smaller communities because when somebody does have it, they're kind of don't want to really you know, let it out. I mean, it's pretty hard to let it out. So that's where I see the outbreaks. But I'm really glad that you've invited me to come here and to speak a little bit about HIV and what a peer mentor does. And I'm hoping that there's more peer mentors to come, because these numbers got to come down. And I really appreciate you listening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Diane.